YouTube vinyl community, Harvey Danger fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens. We're here today to talk about Harvey Danger's second album and one of my favorite albums ever, King James Version. Now, as a prerequisite, I should say most of you probably know Harvey Danger from this album and their song Flagpole Sitta. Maybe you didn't know what the name of that song was. You probably thought it was called Paranoia, Paranoia. Everybody's coming to get me, but it's called Flagpole Sitta. And that is absolutely their most well-known song. That album sold like over 500,000 copies. It went gold. It was a massive hit for them. But they were more than that. Harvey Danger, over the last 20 years of my life, has become one of my favorite bands. Not only are they lyrically fascinating, but it's especially skilled musicians who expanded their sound to incorporate all kinds of genres and feels and vibes, creating atmospheres and textures to really show just how freaking great they were. While I absolutely adore their first album, they progressively got more interesting as they went along, especially with the album that came out after this one, Little by Little, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, right up there with this one. This record for me, I remember hearing it for the first time and being kind of blown away by it because I don't remember this album coming out at all. And there's a story for that. This album was released on September 12th, 2000 through London Sire Records. And it was their last one to feature drummer Evan Salt. And it was produced by John Goodmanson, who worked with everyone from Slater-Kinney to Bikini Kill to Def Cab for Cutie. Recorded mostly through the early part of 1999, March, April 99, and sporadically throughout the rest of that year up to the early part of 2000 before finally being released in September of that year. Harvey Danger were hell-bent on not being a one-hit wonder because Flagpole Sitta exploded for them. It changed everything for them. It's a bittersweet moment. It's like, yeah, this song gave us a career, but it's also like, ugh. They wanted to create a record to show everyone they weren't a one-trick pony, that they can do something fascinating. They really wanted to prove to the music world that they were more than just Flagpole Sitta. They were super impressed by what Radiohead did with OK Computer. You know, like contextually, like when Creep came out, that could be considered almost one-hit wonder status. And then, of course, the band went on to do a whole bunch of other things. But OK Computer was kind of that moment where the guys heard that record and where they were like, whoa, like, okay, they're not just that one sound. They can do anything and people like it. And so they were like, all right, let's do the same thing. Let's have our fans follow us down this journey of expanding our sound, expanding our lyrics, you know, writing songs that don't necessarily follow pop construction. This record really was that moment. They busted their asses on this thing and went through several periods of like, let's work on it. We're going to take a break because the industry stuff is happening. Okay, let's get back to it. We're getting lost in the industry shuffle. Our contracts are over here, over there. What label are we on? What's going on? Okay, let's go back to it again. And it had several iterations or gestations of being worked on. And the proof is in the pudding because each time they went back, something else would change. And on the last time they did it, they came up with 3 of the best songs on the album. So that's pretty cool that they came back to it to finish it off, to make it what it became. It's an album I go back to fairly often, and I'm always taken aback by it because lyrically, it's so freaking deep. There is so much to dig into here inside the human mind, inside how we perceive ourselves, how we talk to other people, how we deconstruct each other, how we don't listen or we listen too much, or we build up our own idea of who we are, but find out other people see us, you know, way more nicer than we really are. There's a lot to unpack lyrically with this record, and that for me, that's the longevity of this album, let alone the fantastic playing. I mean, it's anywhere from Baroque pop to, you know, really awesome alternative rock of its time to just good old rock and roll. It runs the gamut of emotions and sophistication and complexity, but also keeps it entirely digestible. You don't realize how, when you're singing along to these songs, just how deep these words are and the references that they're pointing out to. For instance, the first track, Meetings with Remarkable Men, Show Me the Hero. This is a wonderful song about looking for a hero, literally looking for someone to look up to, a prophet, but ultimately not finding it. You go anywhere from talking to Jesus to Kip Winger and wondering, where am I? What am I doing? The philosophical conversations about life, what's important, what's unnecessary, what's superfluous, what's honest, what's not, and hoping you find those answers in your gods. It's almost like The Seeker by The Who. It's like, I asked Bobby Dylan, I asked the Beatles, I asked Timothy Leary, but he couldn't help me either. I really get those kind of vibes through this track. It's an incredible opener to an album loaded with conversations and dialogue. Literally, a lot of these songs are dialogue between two people, or maybe an inner workings, or looking at oneself in a mirror. So to have this kind of be like the blueprint for what's to come on the record, the eternal search, the eternal search is really something that pervades itself on this album. Humility on Parade follows that one up next, and from what I can figure out, or things I've heard over the years, it might be about the Civil War. It's a lyrical parade too. I mean, this one is absolutely, at one point I almost thought the song was about Star Wars, because it's about, like, it could be about uprising or class warfares, or maybe it is simply just about the Civil War. Why I'm Lonely is a fascinating track, because for the most part, it's pretty quiet. You have these really somber tom-toms working their way through this thing, and cool chugging and palm muting on the guitar, with every once in a while some phrases come through on the guitars and the bass. Lyrically, this thing is beyond wordy on purpose, and I really think it's because, like, when you're having a conversation with somebody, no matter how many metaphors you can throw in, or song references, or, references to anything really, no matter how much you try to explain your heart, sometimes you're just going to cover it up because you don't want to explain the real reasons why you're lonely, or the real reasons why you feel a certain way, or the real reasons why you can't express yourself. That unexpected emptiness that might come with the freedom of a conversation where you've been allowed to chat, and the overall reflection that you have to face when your soul is laid bare, and maybe you can't explain why you feel a certain way, even though you've been given every opportunity. And it's like, maybe that's what's going on with this one. And it's like, that's not why I'm lonely. I can't tell you why. I'm going to leave it there. Sad Sweetheart of the Rodeo is one of my favorite tracks on this record. It was a single from them, actually. It was a music video for it as well. It's just about leaving the mundane behind and looking for the excitement in life. You work your day jobs, you do your normal human being thing on this planet Earth, but you're always looking for something more. It's like looking for the weekend, but, in a grander scheme. Ultimately, there's more to life than this. You get through your day, you do your job, you run through the motions, but you dream. And those dreams are what keep you going. Because when you stop dreaming, you die. I love the rock and roll feel on this song. I love the organ. I love the Lonesome Cowboy, Bill, where are you? Like a Velvet Underground reference. I just love the energy, the excitement, the longing on this one. It's just a great upbeat song, and worthy to be the lead single for this record. It's got that energy. It's got that ready for radio feel. Really, I've always loved this one. And I like the Birds reference with Sweetheart of the Rodeo. I thought that was kind of a cool throw in as well to another album that's misunderstood and kind of forgotten about. Love that record too. You Missed the Point Completely comes up next, and this song, I love this song. The inner workings of our psyche and what we perceive ourselves to be. I've always gone back and forth with this track. Like, is it all self-referential? Is it projection? Is it third person? Are we looking at a mirror talking to ourselves? Are we listening to a conversation of two people deconstructing each other? Or are they trying to understand each other's shortcomings in general, or in terms of the relationship they're in? I love how the music investigates and searches along with the lyrics until gradually it builds and builds and builds until it explodes, like it can't take it anymore. And the song just ends into this cool little, Parisian cafe feel, as if everything's okay. Authenticity was also a single off this record, and I would say, musically it's probably one of the more straightforward ones, which makes sense to be a single, but I love the line, I'm already spinning in my grave. It's like this whole, I just get this giant eye roll of a song. Ugh, like you're dealing with these hipsters, these fake people, you're fed up with the BS that these people are feeding you, and it's kind of like, all right, I get it. I'm the one who's authentic, get out of here. You're not giving me anything I can use here. But musically, I love this one. It's got a super bright organ, these charged up guitars, these sprightly drums. They nailed that fast forward rock and roll approach with this one. Album highlight. Theme from Carjack Fever and going throughout the rest of this album is where the lyrics, I feel like, get even more deep and more hard to figure out, which I love because it means I'm going to keep coming back to this record for the rest of my life. But with this track in particular, I almost feel like it's not so easy to put people into categories or assume generational attitudes. Not to be blinded by shiny things as you try to focus on something or move ahead after a situation. Or maybe I'm thinking too deep about this and it's just about how you think about stuff as you aimlessly cruise around. You know, it's a journey of a song for sure, and maybe that's just part of that journey. You're just thinking to yourself as you drive. And then you get to one of the most beautiful songs ever written by any band. Doesn't matter, Harvey Danger, whoever. It's one of the best songs of all time. Pike Street, Park Slope. A couple cellos, a piano, and Sean's voice. This track is, from what I can feel about it, figuring out one's aspirations or overcoming one's anxieties and hoping that a new town or a new city or a new environment can erase the problems that you have. But ultimately, you're just going to encounter more problems as you enter a new area because situationally, you got to figure out how to navigate this new area. So you can only escape your anxieties for so long, and moving somewhere else really won't be the band-aid you're looking for. This song is also known as, for me and a lot of other Harvey Danger fans, some of the best lines that Sean has ever written. You know, I really love that line, you know, when you like something, it's an opinion. But when I like something, it's a manifesto. Like, I've always read that as, like, eyes rolling. Like, I hear it all the time about how when I like something, it's a manifesto. I get it. Like, oh, okay, this isn't working. But ultimately, leading to one of the best lines of all time, pomposity is when you always think you're right. Arrogance is when you know. Like, ouch. Ouch. Absolutely an album highlight and one of those tracks that I go back to often and reassess as I listen to it or just find new things in it that I may have missed the first 100 times I've heard it. Yeah. Put that one on. This is the thrilling conversation you've been waiting for. Again, another title that's eyes rolling like, yeah, you came to the party here, people. You really want to hear this one? I always got the feeling that this one was kind of like bragging about things that you know a lot about and just, you know, having deaf ears to, you know, pontificate to. You know, the other person could care less. They couldn't give a monkeys about what you're talking about, but it's like you feel good in the moment by talking about all this stuff. You know, I feel like the whole song is just sarcastic. The whole song is just sarcasm, but I dig it a lot. Loyalty Building for me is one of those tracks that I think I've spent the most time trying to figure out what the hell this song is about. And I say that lovingly because that's the mark of a great song, is when you can go back to it and sit there with the words and try to read them over and over and over again and be like, what is he singing about? You get your money's worth with the record, but I think what I want to say about it, and I could be completely wrong, so, you know, Harvey Danger, if you watch this, please tell me I'm wrong. Maybe it's about the false prophets and the things that you want to trust being untrustworthy. So you're looking for a safe place to find comfort with like-minded people to forge forward and work together. Like that line, there must be a plan. The song builds into a jam to nail home that excitement and that camaraderie of optimism during the bad times. And I really feel like it's just about looking for like-minded people to share the optimism and, you know, fight the good fight. And know that, like, no matter how many times you were told, if, you know, when you were a kid, you know, certain things you should look up to, you know, as a kid, you believe in them, but as you grow up, you might find that they have failed you many times, and you got to find your own peace, you find your own happiness, your own hero. Show me the hero, you know, once again. Underground is a cover by a group called This Busy Monster, another Seattle band, and it's a complete reimagining of the track itself. It's definitely Harvey Dangerified. It's kind of a slow jammer with really great timid guitars and timid drums, really. The string section is wonderful. I love how Sean sings his heart out in this one, like really hanging onto each note. The album ends with one of the best breakup songs of all time, the same as Being in Love. This one, for me, you know, situations pass, we play roles, you know, maybe the couple in this track can sometimes cancel each other out. You know, like I was the typo, you were the liquid paper. That's a great freaking line. You know, they're using each other poorly, and no matter how much talking happens, it's not action, and words eventually evaporate. So is anything really going on here? And I love that, you know, it ends with "It's breaking my heart again, it's breaking my heart again." Yeah. Here's the back of the CD. Some shots of the guys. The disc, the jacket folds out with all the lyrics on it, which is wonderful. Super helpful. A little backstory on this review for myself. Many, many years ago when I was a young, aspiring YouTuber, I did a review for this album, and I never released it. I filmed it in probably 2015, 10 years ago, which is terrifying. And I never felt it was good enough because the album has so many layers, and I never felt like what I said was good enough. And even this review, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what this record has to offer to the listener. There's so much here that begs re-listens and begs the attention of so many more people. This album is important. It's rock and roll, but it's about being lost within your own head. It's being lost within the characters of these songs. It's about figuring out your own psyche, but it's also figuring out how to handle skepticism and fraud and understanding the world around you when the things that you were told would be okay aren't okay. It's an album about love and loss. It's an album about looking up to people. It's an album about figuring out how to figure things out. It's truly a shame that this record didn't get promoted the way it was supposed to, and the guys broke up after this record came out. They did a tour, things just didn't happen, and they broke up. They ultimately got back together again for Little by Little, and a couple shows and tours after that. But that's what hurt this album the most, is that like they got lost in that corporate shuffle, which is like, that's the last thing you want to have happen as a band. You want to make your music, make your art, put it out there and have people enjoy it. The BS that happens behind the scenes, that's what ruins most bands. Obviously, infighting doesn't really help either, but the stuff that happens behind the scenes, the corporate stuff, you guys know the Beatles story. It's just what happens. So I'm really, really glad that this album is being reissued for its 25th anniversary. What the hell? On vinyl for the first time ever. Sean really wanted to get this thing put out on vinyl back in the day, but again, it couldn't happen because of corporate stuff behind the scenes and licensing and all that kind of stuff. It's just like you made the art. You should be able to do whatever you want with it, which is what they did for their third album. They put out online and as a download. So in the end, they won. Harvey Danger created an album here that is an experience. Yeah, you can put it on and jam and rock out to it, but like lyrically, there's depth here. And when you match that with the power of the playing from the guys on this record, you have something truly special here. It's not just an album that was like, of the 90s. Oh, it was that alternative scene. Like, it's not like that. They play with so many genres on this thing. It's an album that should be highly regarded as one of the most influential records of its time. It sounds like nothing else out there at that time. Contextually, you gotta look back on 2000. I mean, I was there. I was a younger person in those days, but like, it was all teeny bopper stuff, and pop punk was huge, and boy bands and girl pop. It was Christina, Britney, Blink-182. Like, that's what 2000 was. This album is like one of those things that 25 years later you could look back on and be like, wow, that's an important one. That's one of the ones that we missed the first time. That's one of the ones I need to live with now. So without spending the next 6 hours just telling you how great this album is, do yourself a favor, put it on. Find a copy, buy it, stream it, do whatever you gotta do to play this album and understand its importance. And it's how freaking great Harvey Danger were. A band that never got their due. Obviously Flagpole Soda is their claim to fame for most people, but if you're like me and you love that album, you'll love this one, you'll love Little by Little. They grew as artists, they got better and better as they went along, and it's a damn shame they're not around anymore, but with unfortunately Aaron Huffman passed away, so there is no more Harvey Danger at this point, but what they made is art, and it should be taken as such. So Harvey Danger, if anybody in this band watches this review, thank you. Thank you for making one of the coolest records of all time that 25 years later, I'm still trying to figure out the bloody lyrics to. So thanks for the puzzle, guys. With that, absolutely a 10 out of 10 for me. I love this record to pieces. There isn't a bad note on it. Put it on, enjoy it. You're going to love it. My name is Giggens. Thank you so much for watching this really long review of an album I care a lot about. Harvey Danger, King James version, a record that needs to be in everyone's ears. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Take care of yourselves and show me a hero. I'll write you a tragedy.